Hello, and welcome back to the newly relocated Monday Reality Check podcast. I decided to move the podcast posting to Monday because in thinking about it and checking the analytics, it seems more likely that people would want to listen on a Monday rather than a Friday. Mondays, people are getting back into work slowly, so maybe they want to kill some time hearing me yap about life, as opposed to Friday when most people are, dreaming about their weekend plans. These are the sort of interesting, minute details that we entrepreneurs have to consider about our audience or market. But enough about my little world. Let's get to today's question. It reads, one of my colleagues steals office supplies. We're allowed to take and use them, but he's taking so many that it's actually worth noting. I want to tell someone, but he is my friend, and I don't want to appear like a snitch in the company. How do I deal with this situation? So more of an ethical dilemma this time around, which is great. One of the interesting facts about life that I don't think people think about routinely is the interplay between philosophy and psychology. Philosophy is, when you really boil it down, it's the examination of good and evil, right and wrong. Psychology is frequently informed by our philosophical views, especially as it relates to self-esteem. Put simply, when you do what you think is right and good, you feel better about yourself and your place in the world. When you do what you think is wrong or evil, that's when guilt and shame hits. So one of the big things I try to tackle in my life coaching session is making sure that people have a good philosophy for living, one that conforms to reality, as the name implies. So back to the question at hand. As always, we have to break it down into different factors again. Now, the first thing to consider is the fact that this guy is your friend. That implies to me that you're close enough with him that talking with him directly should be an option. If it were me, I would catch up with him after work sometime and see if you can broach the topic then. Now, the thing to avoid here is putting him on the defensive. If he's a decent enough guy, he should already know what he's doing is wrong, or at the very least, sketchy. So he probably already feels a bit of shame about it. Maybe he assumes that no one's noticed, and therefore you bringing it up might catch him off guard. The first thing to do is to make clear that you're looking out for his interests. Maybe start by saying something like, I'm just trying to look out for you. What's up? Are you hurting for cash? Are you taking this stuff for some other reason? The idea here being that you're not trying to put the focus on the stuff, which, doesn't really matter all that much in the end, but instead focusing on the why of it. If you can get him to tell you what's motivating him, then you can address that problem directly, friend to friend, and never have to involve anyone else. The best outcome here is one where the stealing stops and your friend finds a healthier way of achieving whatever material or psychological goals he's grasping for. Now, if he gets defensive and starts treating you like the bad guy for even bringing this up and refuses to work with you, that's when you'll probably have to involve your higher-ups at work. If your workplace has a policy that allows for people to take supplies here and there, it gets a little blurry where the line of impropriety actually lies. So instead of you trying to be the judge of that, I would simply talk to your immediate supervisor or manager and say something like, I can't tell what's going on with Bob. You may want to watch him and see what you think. The idea here being, take this off your plate. Your job is to perform your task that you were hired for. It's not to play, office policeman. So you should let your manager know if you think something unethical is going on, but that's really it. It's up to them to decide what to do about it. I wouldn't really say that's like snitching, because they may say like, oh, we don't, really care, and then there's no problem. Now, I skipped over an important part of this that I'll address right now, and that's the idea of loyalty. A lot is made in stories and culture of this idea of being loyal to your friends and family. That is, standing by them, quote unquote, through thick and thin. Now, the positive side is sticking with them during illness, natural disasters, unexpected, joblessness or homelessness. But the negative side of that, and what we often see in like TV dramas and movies, is protecting people while they do immoral things. So I want to state clearly that if you feel it's your duty to protect loved ones from the consequences of their immorality, you're asking for a world of trouble and regret. First off, you're putting yourself in harm's way because no one, aside from your friend, that's doing this stuff, is going to give you brownie points for staying loyal. Rather, everyone will look at it objectively and think, what was the point of covering for this stupidity? So it doesn't help you in the slightest, but it helps your friend out, right? I mean, it's a sacrifice that you make for being his friend. Well, no, it's actually the opposite of that. You're actually hurting your friend's future because you're enabling his bad behavior. Life works at its best when cause and effect is allowed to proceed unhindered. We humans are always trying to find ways of cheating cause and effect. In essence, we want to eat our cake and have it too. In this case, he wants the office supplies, but he doesn't want to earn them. Now, the consequence for this attempt at cheating cause and effect should be that he gets caught, learns that it's not really worth trying to cheat, and goes on to earn things instead of steal them. But when you jump in and try to stop that process from playing out, even if you're successful, all that's going to accomplish is teaching him that he can do whatever he wants, and the people around him will allow him to do it. It's positive reinforcement, and that will spur him on to riskier and more stupid acts of immorality. And then who was really helped by any of this? Yes, you may have prevented him from losing his job in the present, but in the future, all you really did was set him up to take a bigger fall when he does something that's really reckless. Now, that was a bit of a tangent, but I think it's important for people to understand that this idea of loyalty has, in a lot of ways, become warped and counterproductive. Everyone makes mistakes, and it's only through learning from those mistakes that we become better people. If this guy suffers some consequences for his petty theft, it's better that he learns his lesson now when the penalties will be lighter. Finally, as to whether you should feel any guilt for this, supposed snitching, I would say absolutely not, as long as you approach it as I outlined here. If throughout all of this your aim is to help your friend get on the right side of things, then there's nothing to feel guilty about. The only way in which I could see guilt coming into play is if you, delighted in his punishment as some sort of schadenfreude. But from the wording of your question, it's clear that that's not the case. So if it comes down to having to tell someone at work about him, I don't think there's any reason you should feel bad about it. He understands the rules just as well as you do, and thus he takes responsibility for breaking them. In other words, he knew the risks going in. It's a tough question, and I hope that whatever problem your friend is having that's motivating him to do this can be resolved with as little pain as possible. But above all, just make sure you don't allow unearned guilt in yourself to creep in for doing the right thing. All right, so that about wraps up this episode. As always, please keep sending those questions in. I am running a little bit low at this point, so I would welcome anything, big or small. And if you think you'd like some one-on-one time with me, let me know, and we can start problem solving right away. If you've listened to a few of these episodes now, you'll start to notice how quickly these seemingly complex or difficult situations can be disassembled and simplified. And then from there, dealing with them becomes so much easier. So if you want to make your life simpler, easier to process, etc., one-on-one sessions are the way to go. All right, so until next Monday, have a great week.